What you guys are doing is going to change public education beyond just New Hampshire. It is going to change public education all over the United States.
The old system really let a lot of people fall through the cracks on both sides of the bell curve. And now I can take it into my own hands.
Yeah, it just wasn't physical science, it was also algebra 2. They were very tough classes for me, but with the competencies I was able to take a little bit more time with the projects to show that I really knew the subjects.
So it's been a really awesome experience to be able to co-teach a class with a teacher here.
If there's anything that I take away from Pittsfield, it's that it's a community that's inspired to change education. Tonight is about inspiration.
Pittsfield's been a leader for all of us in the country. They have bravely taken on the whole vision of creating student-centered learning with a competency-based structure.
To create a solar oven. So this was our initial design.
Yes, thank you.
Pittsfield is a small town in rural New Hampshire near the central part of the state. It's a town that once had a very lively downtown and mills along the Suncook River, and has lost much of the commerce that was characteristic here. Our free and reduced lunch rate is 58%, which is more than double the New Hampshire average.
When I first started attending Pittsfield Middle High School, I found a lot of teachers who were up on the board just teaching you how to do something and assigning homework to go home, figure it out on your own. Coming to school got very repetitive, got fairly boring after a while.
There wasn't a lot of involvement with the students, interacting with other students.
Something needed to be done because our school was in poor shape. It was one of the worst, I think one of the bottom 5 in the state.
2008 was at the very beginning of the recession. The high school had lost 40% of its student enrollment when another community sent its kids to a new high school.
We were in a financial crunch, needed to make some drastic cuts in budget.
That began a year-long process of re-envisioning the school. At the first day of school in the 2008-2009 school year, we took faculty and staff through some visioning exercises that would create a vision of what this school could be. And we did the same thing over the winter months with our community.
They were held different times of the day, so it made it accessible for any community member to be a part of the conversations.
We had Saturday forums. We did it at the opening of schools, so we got our bus drivers, our cafeteria, our janitorial staff. Everybody was really involved in this conversation. I think that was our first hint that, okay, we're going to do something different here, and this isn't going to be business as usual anymore.
I started getting on some of the planning committees when they asked for student voice.
We wanted to hear from the community exactly what they wanted their high school to look like.
You don't love it, do you? In essence, they were looking for a school that personalized learning. They felt that it was a small school, and so they wanted their kids, their students, to be known, to have their passions recognized and encouraged, to have their deficits recognized and addressed, and they wanted their students on graduation day to come off that stage with a realistic but ambitious plan for the next phase of their lives. And so that really was the start of the transformation here in the Pittsfield Middle High School.
We started the process by understanding what the goals were of wanting to be successful, raising student performance. So then with the goals on the wall, literally on the wall in front of us, we can start to say, so what's the roadmap that gets us there?
Well, we continue to come back to the values, vision, mission, and guiding principles.
Eventually that led to their logic model, which is really how things got organized for action. What's the current conditions? What's the future state you're looking for, and then what are the steps along the way? How long will it take? What are the practices you have to use? What skills do you have to build to get there?
What can we add? What can we do in the school to make this a place where you want to come to school? So that's really a big push.
This is what it is. This is the objectives, individual objectives. And this is where we're at right now, three-year period.
The logic model has become a very important part of our journey. It has become the blueprint, the roadmap.
It was very, very difficult. The first year or two were very, very challenging years here, and people felt that we were going in 100 different directions, but in fact, when they reflected upon it, they realized that we were going in one direction in 100 different ways.
One of the biggest ways that Pittsfield helped overcome those fears and resistance was being out at community events, going out as much as possible, talking with people about the district level change and how you could get involved.
We wanted to create a schedule that would allow for some significant professional development time for our faculty and staff, and that would sort of loosen the hold of a traditional school schedule.
Late start Wednesdays, that's a critical piece here. On Wednesday morning, teachers meet. They have 2 hours of professional development, all involved with the student.
Today we're here for day 4 of a 5-day collaborative practices training, which is the use of protocols to help structure conversations in the classroom, but also with adults to make our meetings more productive.
We are doing the change presentations right now, and you are looking at my revised rubric for the change. If you want to take a look at it, and I don't know, maybe we'll just do some cool and warm feedback kind of thing.
When teachers work together for lesson planning and stuff, sometimes it's hard to really say some of those critical kinds of things. So these collaborative practices help structure the conversations in ways that make it safe for you to be really critical of one another's work.
On the research phase, one of your first things is generate a research question. I wanted to know, like, well, what kind of research question? Is it just a...
To support the change, we really had to look at the structure differently, so we had to make sure that our teachers had time to talk almost every day. So they now have a common planning time 4 days a week with their group in addition to their prep time.
The grade 7 rubrics, competency rubrics. So just to go through what exactly they are.
So we're starting our unit on existentialism, which we've talked about a little bit. And by the end of today, the only thing I want us to think about is different ways to approach answering that question that's on the board.
Inquiry is important because it puts the student at the center of learning. Often students are given a prompt, or they are given a picture or something to read, and they develop the questions around it.
One of the big changes in my teaching has been trying to do more student-led discussions, because it's about them and their inquiry, not my preconceptions of what I want them to learn.
Jeremy?
I wrote, how does he remain so vacant with his feelings still?
That's the challenge, is kind of being like, okay, I might be the expert, but I'm not there standing at the front of the classroom. I want the student to discover it on their own and trusting that discovery process.
We used to have parent-teacher conferences at the school where the parents would come in and they'd talk to the teachers about their student. But those weren't very effective because not all the parents showed up. But now we switched to student-led conferences.
So the purpose is just to basically share personal, social, academic growth over the course of the year.
So the student, they prepare what they want to show to their parents, their advisor, then a community member or a faculty member.
I chose this one because I really like the projects in my environmental science class. I really like doing the projects, designing things like this.
The student-led conferences definitely are more interactive, and they do answer a whole lot more questions.
of how the student is actually feeling about their education and where they're headed.
I have my updated resume, and it's starting to look like a professional resume.
We have a district-wide exhibition where students can present any of the projects or, inquiry-based units that they've done in class, and they present that to their family and the community. And having that authentic audience to demonstrate, this is, what I figured out, this is how I answered this, is really meaningful to them.
It's right here where the beaver dam is.
For me, student-centered learning is really about putting the students at the center of their education rather than on the outskirts. It's about teaching to the students rather than the students adapting to the teacher.
It's the projects, it's the discussions, it's the ways that we can integrate what it is we want to learn with what we're already being told, we should know.
Each soul has to be purified before it can stay with Summerlin for good.
It became a lot more one-on-one with teachers and more group work.
I'm learning a great deal more through this way because I'm passionate about what I'm doing and I'm not just receiving information. I'm searching for it.
Ooh, that's good.
Extended learning opportunities is an opportunity for students to gain high school credit in a learning environment outside of the school. It's anytime, any place learning where students are working with a community partner, a highly qualified teacher, and myself to put together a plan that's based around students' passions and interests.
Here we go. 105.5 JYY, New Hampshire's #1 music station. Yep, 8:20.
If you read, you don't get that same experience as if you got hands-on.
Fraser just got his cast off his arm off. How many weeks was that thing on, dude?
6 weeks.
Nice.
I mean, I might have some questions, but I can't just ask the book for a question. If I have a question, I can ask Nazi, and he can give me a direct answer.
I love doing my ELO because you actually get out there and learn about something you love.
Remember the little study guide I gave you to research, Miranda? Good.
Learning studios are a chance where students can actually design the course with the partnership of a teacher, and it's a chance for them to connect things across content areas and go deeper with something.
I want Josh, Matt, Quinn, and Jeremy.
This school year, I had the opportunity on Wednesdays to teach hour-long classes. Mine was called Engineer It, and it was about engineering. So my students had a 4-day process that they went through where they researched, designed, built, and then tested and reflected different things.
See, that's what I'm saying. It's like almost impossible to do it. It's so tight.
Summer academies, it's something that they intensively do over the course of a week or 2 weeks in the summer. So last summer they went out to a camp and they stayed for 4 nights, 5 days, and learned all about the ecology of the camp. So got to do water sampling, got to take the trails and see what was going on there, and really go deep in one topic. And they received science credit for it. We're training students for jobs that aren't even created yet, so we can't just give them content. We have to teach them how to learn and how to digest new content on their own.
Come on, Mr. David.
It'll hold you.
Competency-based education asks the question, how can we get all of our students to college and career readiness? If we're going to depend on the traditional system, we'll never get there. We pass students on with C's and D's. Starting in elementary school, they haven't built up their foundational skills and they go to the next level and they struggle, and they go to the next level and they struggle. What we want to do is make sure that every student is becoming proficient every step of the way.
So in competency-based education, there's no averaging of scores. You don't do well on one project and not do well on another project. You have to meet all of the competencies in order to pass a class. Whereas a test or traditional teaching, you only get one chance to make it or break it, and competency-based education, you can get multiple chances to improve upon your mastery of those competencies.
When competencies were first implemented here at the school, I wasn't like a firm believer on competencies. I guess I started to like competencies once I had completed my physical science course. Physical science was a really tough class, and we all did competency recovery. There was some extra work involved, but I think overall I got a lot more out of it than I did in the classroom had I not done competency recovery.
The competency-based has definitely been a good change, positive. I mean, it gives the students much more ownership over their learning, but also the ability to learn those skills in different ways.
Like credits and debits.
I do like the competency systems. I feel like it's just pushing you that extra mile to like make you do more work and get a higher grade and do better for yourself.
Initially, we had a student council in which students kind of superficially created spirit weeks or would take initiative on maybe a particular day or week-long event, but they didn't really have any decision-making authority. When we transitioned from a traditional student council to a site council that had that decision-making authority, students over time began to understand that they had a really powerful voice at the table.
I agree that would probably be something that we need to take a little bit more time on, so maybe move that into the new business category.
We have what's called a site council, and they're our school's governing body, so they're in charge of anything that's not school board policy or federal law.
Move into the subcommittee reports.
The council is made up of students and faculty members and community members. The students have the majority, the voting majority on the council.
All in favor of the motion that's been put in place?
When students are a part of making decisions in the school building, they're a lot more likely to buy in and understand what's really going on and what's behind all the different rules. Rather than complaining, you can work to kind of fix it and make it better.
So we actually have to break down, restructure, and redo our whole discipline system. And to do that, we're having teacher reps, community reps, administrators, and we need student reps. And you're the group. As part of our student-centered transition, we realized that our discipline system was not student-centered at all. It was very adult, top-down, and punitive. The principal 5 years ago suggested that I take a group of students and look at our discipline system and try and find an alternative, and he suggested restorative justice. Can we think of a scenario that have happened, may happen to our students at school that we can do a mock mediation around?
Like someone took someone's phone and went on their phone and texted people things that weren't true and ruined their social life.
This is actually a very common scenario at the school. It's a huge paradigm shift from the way that schools normally do discipline. It's about holding students personally accountable for their behavior because they broke the community, now they have to fix the community. Let's create a circle here in the middle.
The Justice Committee is, I think, 13 students, and we were all trained specifically to handle these types of cases. We deal with drama and respect issues. That's our area of expertise, and it's going really well. We've had a lot of successful cases. I think we've had 10 out of 11 cases were successful.
All right.
Welcome and thank you for using JC.
Another opportunity that students have really taken the lead on is the Student Ambassador Program.
Welcome to Pittsfield.
Thank you so much.
My name is Max Tuttle. I'm a senior. Nice to meet you.
Really nice to meet you. And hi.
The folks who will greet our visitors or who will give guided tours of incoming 7th graders.
Glad you're here.
Yeah.
Since the rubrics are designed by the teachers, or in some cases the students actually, they all differ from class to class. We went and we gave a presentation to the Department of Education.
As a result of the student leadership opportunities, you see students who are not only more empowered, but are much more self-confident. They have tremendous public speaking skills.
We want to raise our students to be leaders because they are going to be leading our country, so why not start when they're in high school?
We have understood very deeply that what we created would need to be sustained once there was no grant funding, once maybe the people that started the project were possibly gone and not here anymore. So from the very beginning, I think we took steps to ensure that whatever we created could be sustained. Probably the most important piece to sustaining the work has been to keep the vision and the mission fresh and at the very front of everything that we do.
In your work in the revision, did you find a lot of revision to be made?
Human nature is that once you start something, if you don't continue to work to improve it, it stagnates and usually ends up falling apart and you're back to where you were before. The Good to Great team mission is continuous improvement, and we are now in the process of identifying programs that should be evaluated.
Those may be some of the things that we'd have to look at to see if it is sustainable. Should it be K through 12?
Another sustainability measure that we've taken is to make sure that we have empowered people within the school to be the leader that's within.
Yeah, I was fortunate to have the opportunity to come back and work in the school district that I grew up in. I was able to move from a classroom teacher to an administrator through a lot of the professional development, focus group, leadership roles that other school administrators had empowered me to work on.
Chevelle. Congratulations, fourth graders.
We've moved to almost completely in-house professional development, so where our teachers are supporting each other, where we're using the protocols that we've been trained on. So we're not relying on outside people coming in and telling us what to do. Now we're relying on each other and supporting each other on where we need to go in our next step.
There's a lot you can learn from Pittsfield. From the most basic when we started was just how to run a meeting, how to stay focused, how not to waste time. The other lessons learned are to slow down. The byword of change is go slow to go fast. And it doesn't mean to be unproductive, but the going slow means the systemic look.
It wasn't piecemeal in terms of, oh, we've thought of this, now let's do that, we've thought of that, let's do that. It was all very planned, calculated, intentional moves that were made. We did it all basically at the same time, so it was kind of the pain all happened at once.
It's a shift in culture. And the shift in culture is the beliefs that we have and the behaviors that underlie those beliefs, the assumptions we make about how schools should be. And culture change is the deepest change, in my opinion, that you could make.
When we think about equity, we're trying to develop strategies to meet kids where they are. We're developing strategies to personalize education so that every student is successful.
My junior and senior year, I really started noticing students wanting to be in the school. A lot of students were becoming involved within the school in student leadership programs. Students actually taking their education in their own hands made them a lot more excited to come to school.
The climate and the atmosphere here have changed drastically. There's more buy-in from the parents and the students.
I see it as a radical change. The teachers are mostly there to facilitate and to help us where we fail. We're leading everything now.